Hello, officers of the LAPD and Boston Police Departments, respectively. No firefighters, though. Fuck firefighters, all right? Go save a cat from a fucking tree. Coming to you live from a squad car patrolling Burbank, California, this is the Film vs. Film podcast. I am your host, Quinn Boys, and I'm not a fucking rat. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Leonard Smith Jr. Leonard, do you like to get wet?
Nah, I ain't never got wet. But you have. That shit we smoked earlier? That wasn't weed, my friend.
What are you talking about?
Oh, that was Sherm. PCP. Angel dust.
I've never done that before. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you got wet.
Yeah, I have to film a podcast.
You got wet.
Oh, my God.
But you know what? You my nigga. So that's all that matters.
Oh, God.
What's going on, guys? If you haven't figured out what movies we're talking about, you'll find out here in a second. But we have a great prompt today presented to us by our guest today, James Mastraieni. You might know him from Effing High, the hilarious podcast, which I have been on. Thank you so much. Okay, hold on.
All your electronics just going out?
The power went out in my apartment.
Oh, is that what happened?
That's what happened.
Oh, shit.
We're going to keep all this in.
I was wondering what I was
Yeah, the lights went off.
Are these like, is this scheduled?
Yeah, we're keeping this in the podcast. I am a little high, but I was just like, wait, what?
I'm also high, and the whole time I was like,
and I'm on PCP apparently. So
But yes, we have from Effing High and Florida Girls, we have James Mastraieni.
Yeah.
What's going on, James?
James, thank you for being on.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in the squad car with us and rolling through. You're doing like a ride along, right? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, it's a
right along, yeah. Just, don't take me to the jungle.
Don't go out there alone.
Yeah.
I have to be with you.
Yeah, you got to be with me.
We are talking about movies today where the lead or main character
Spoiler alert.
dies.
There you go.
They die. And that happens
It
in a
seems
lot
like
of
we're
movies.
talking about cop movies,
Yeah.
although we are. But no, the prompt was not. It did not specify cop movies. We just happened to pick two cop movies. But we were talking about that we could have picked like a weepy romantic like drama. Like what's that movie where the
My first thought was, what's the movie where Macaulay Culkin dies?
Oh,
My
when
Girl?
he's a little kid?
My Girl. I don't
My
know if he's the
Girl.
main character, but...
Well, he also dies in The Bad Son, The Good Son.
Oh, yeah. He's a piece
but
of...
I guess
he's like evil. He's like an
Elijah
evil
Wood
orphan.
is probably...
does he die at the end of Home Alone? What's how all I remember is Danny DeVito has him by the neck against the door.
No, dude, the crazy thing is he was dead the whole time.
Oh, it's one of those.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about movies where the main character dies in the end. James, as is become tradition on this show, we asked the guests to suggest some prompts. You suggested this one. I think Leonard and I were both like, that's a great prompt. We haven't talked about anything like that before. Do you like movies like that? Like, how did that come into your brain?
I love movies like this. One of my favorite like kind of story arcs is I guess it would be called like the story arc of like there's actually a phrase in like storytelling. I shouldn't have.
Oh, like the hero's journey or something like? Is it?
Yeah, kind of. But in this particular one, it's basically when a protagonist goes from good to evil.
Okay.
Or good to bad in some way, right? Like they start off moral and then they end up immoral. Or maybe they start off certain shades of immoral, but then they end up even worse. Like Breaking Bad is like that, like that specific story arc. I wish I could remember what it's called. And it'll come to me. But so yeah, I love. I think Scorsese, who actually is my favorite director. So
Okay. Okay.
and so he does a lot of this style of storytelling of like, things getting worse for the protagonist, like Goodfellas with Henry Hill, or like, The King of Comedy or Taxi Driver. Like, even though some of those characters started already pretty immoral,
Yeah.
their sort of immoral compass makes by the end their lives fucking miserable.
Seeing the boy from
And
Hugo.
other people's lives.
And other people's, yeah. So I do like those. Wolf of Wall Street is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you couldn't figure it out, one of us chose a Martin Scorsese directed film.
Yep.
What movie did you choose for this prompt?
All right, let's get right into mine. I Oh, you know what I was almost going to say from the intro now? And it's too late to go back, but I was going to say, I'm your host, Quinn Boys. I'm a sailor of pain, and I've lost my leg. I chose, of course, the 2006 Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Jack Nicholson joint, The Departed. What's there to say about this movie? It's a remake of a... Oh, man, I'll look it up. I don't remember if it's a Korean film or a Japanese film, but it's a remake of a movie called Internal Affairs, and it's a story now set on the mean streets of Boston about a cop and a gangster who take parallel paths coming up through growing up in Boston and kind of embedding themselves within their rival organizations. Leonardo DiCaprio is a young cop. He gets sent to prison strategically so that he can come out and kind of use his contacts to join up with Jack Nicholson's crew, become a gangster, kind of indoctrinate himself into that lifestyle. And meanwhile, Jack Nicholson has raised Matt Damon, who's just sort of a kid from the city who he helped out when he was a boy, and he's kind of taken him under his wing, set him on the right track under the wrong, false pretenses, and now he's embedded him within the Boston Police Department. And they kind of work to, never knowing the other exists. Yeah, the Stadies. They kind of work to expose the other, and it's a great movie. It was a popular movie. I don't remember if it won Best Picture. I guess we can get into that when we look at stats, but it was a very popular movie at the time. I think it spawned 1,000 Boston accents, and also is maybe more than any other movie responsible for the just like abundance of Boston shit that we've dealt with since then in media. Like, everyone was shooting shit in Boston after this. Every actor went home and polished up their Southie accent in case they had to be like, you know.
I mean, it really took off after that, because after that it felt like you had The Fighter, you had
was that Ben Stiller movie where they were all like four like guys and they robbed armored trucks and shit like that.
Did you say
You mean Ben
Stiller?
Affleck?
I said Ben Affleck.
You mean the town,
Town?
Ben
The
Affleck.
Town.
You said Ben Stiller.
The Town, starring Ben Stiller and Jack Black.
Oh my God, yes. Ben
No way
Affleck.
in hell Ben Stiller could convince anyone he's from Boston. Yes, that's The Town, Gone Baby Gone.
Baby Gone. Fucking gone, baby, gone. Fucking The Town.
I could never do a black.
Then Bill Burr became famous, and like all of this shit, The Departed really did wonders for Boston.
Which is funny because I think like everything now, it's like Nicholson, we'll talk about him a lot, I'm sure, but like Nicholson, I think retroactively kind of receives flack for not really trying to do a Boston accent. Like, there's some scenes where he does. Like, I remember there's one moment where he's talking to DiCaprio and he goes, "I see a kid like you and I think, what can I do you for?" And he tries to like put on the thing. And then other times he's just like, "This ain't reality TV." He's just like classic Jack, which is not a guy. He's a very LA guy. So nowadays you are expected to come correct. They put Benedict fucking Cumberbatch in that Whitey Bulger movie, and that poor motherfucker, that English motherfucker, had to do a Boston accent.
Oh man,
you can't get away with opting out of the Boston accent if you're in a Boston movie.
No.
That's all. That's my point.
Yeah, you really can't.
This was back when you could. I even think they filmed parts of the like on the streets and stuff in New York, because at the time Boston hadn't like incentivized people to come yet. It wasn't like this hub for all these productions. So it launched it, but it's also like not the most authentic Boston movie, or maybe it just didn't OD on all the tropes like the movies after it did. But that's my pick. We're spoiling these whole movies. Obviously, everybody who could be considered a lead character dies by the end of this movie. So I just wanted to cover my bases in case Leonard came at me like, "Oh, but the lead character is not DiCaprio, it's Damon." It's like they're all fucking dead, and they all get it in the head.
I can't be mad at you, but I'm not surprised by your pick. Of course, you're going to pick a front runner movie where everyone dies in the movie. Martin Scorsese directed film, but I can't be mad at you because it's a great fucking movie. The Departed.
Do you guys like it? Yeah. So that's, I guess,
and really fast. Sorry, because I did remember what it's called. It's called a punishment plot. Where the protagonist gets, because of their own behavior, they get punished more and more throughout the story.
Okay.
Interesting.
It took me a minute to remember, but yeah.
I was looking up like those old, like, what are they, like, those old hero myth things, trying to figure out what you're getting. Punishment plot.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's like different ones, like punishment plot, or like there's another one where they become more cynical, like the protagonist becomes more and more cynical feeling. There's ones where like, yeah, it's like a whole fun category of different types of stories.
So you
it
guys,
was interesting to hear you talk about this whole Boston accent thing. Luckily, I don't ever have to worry about that.
We're gonna have you do a Boston accent before the episode's out.
I didn't really notice that during the movie, but in my mind, I'm like, people come from different parts of towns. Like, there are different type of there are 8 to 10 to 12 to 15 type of accents in every town. You know,
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I felt like the supporting characters were great. Like,
Oh my
you
God,
can talk
yeah.
about Alec Baldwin or like Mark Wahlberg, like as
Probably
Eggman.
one of maybe 2 or 3 times I've ever liked Mark Wahlberg.
Yes.
in
Yes.
a movie.
Right?
I mean, this is a role
Right?
that's born for him to play, which
Yeah.
is a racist, corrupt
Bully,
Boston cop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. He
Yeah.
was
Yes.
born. This is in his DNA.
I just like this movie because it just felt so goddamn genuine. Like, me not being from Boston or that area or knowing the accents or the tropes, everything else felt genuine, just like how racist everybody was,
Oh, yeah.
misogynistic. It's like, fuck, just, these are how the cops really act.
Totally.
And would be. Like, the third word of this movie is niggers. it's like,
And
That's the
the one.
third word of the movie.
it's crazy.
It's like it's Nicholson. He starts the movie where he's like, you can either be a I don't but yeah, he says that's the thing the don't understand. You know, he's talking about how like the Irish had the White
Oh,
White
because you
House
gotta
with
take
Kennedy
it.
and
Nothing's
stuff.
given
Exactly.
to you. You gotta take it.
And it's like, you know, I agree with you, Leonard. It's a that's authenticity. I appreciate the fact that like they do have a black character in this movie. It's Anthony Anderson.
Who also dies.
Yeah, yeah.
And Anthony Anderson's death is maybe the most like, oh, you didn't need to kill Anthony Anderson.
Exactly. That's how.
But I
felt.
do appreciate that, like in that movie, he's in training with DiCaprio. You know, they're like running on the lawn outside, and they're about to get like their badges, get through police training, and DiCaprio tells them they're talking about something, and DiCaprio tells him, he's like, "You're a black man in Boston. You don't need any help from me to be completely and totally fucked." So it's just sort of like, and that bears out. But yeah, there's this movie. Anthony Anderson at the time, who has gone on to be, you know, a major player in Hollywood. This was obviously pre-Blackish and all of the things that Anthony Anderson has done. He was, to me at the time, embarrassing to say, he was like Kangaroo Jack. I was like, what's Kangaroo Jack doing in this movie? Like, I did not know Anthony Anderson. I knew him as like a comedian, and now it's funny to see him as probably like the 10th lead in this movie, because there's so, like Martin Sheen, Alec Baldwin, Mark Wahlberg, Damon, Vera Farmiga. There's so many talented
Yeah, like
people.
2006 to 2010 was a real good time for him. He like was in a Transformers movie.
That's right,
He
yeah.
was in this. Like, the black community knew him.
He's
'cause he was
value
in, like,
added.
Barbershop.
I was going to say,
he was in a bunch of
Barbershop before Departed or after?
Yeah, he was in Barbershop before.
I remember him in Barbershop.
Yeah, he's in
Stealing the
Barbershop.
ATM.
He was in a bunch of like black movies.
Yeah.
Like in the early 2000s, and then he really like hit mass media, like pop culture. Like,
Did he do
you know.
stand up, or was he just an actor?
He like has done stand up, but I don't think he's a stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in Malibu's Most Wanted, too.
He was. Yep. He also was in Malibu's Most Wanted.
My favorite Scary Movie, Scary Movie 3. He and,
like
Scary
he
Movie
and-
3 is
he was
so
like the lead in that movie.
fucking funny.
How is it a mouse if it's in the house? You know that whole thing with
I've
him and
never
Kevin
watched
Hart.
Scary Movie.
Oh, you
3.
gotta watch.
I thought it
Scary
was so dumb, and I just.
Dude, I mean,
It is.
I also
it
hadn't.
is stupid. It's
I also
so
hadn't
dumb.
seen like The Ring. I hadn't seen like the movies that
Oh,
they were like
yeah.
making fun of. I
Yeah.
hadn't seen.
Oh, you were waiting. You don't want to spoil the
yeah.
Scary Movies fight.
Yeah.
So that's my movie.
The Departed.
We'll talk
The
about The
Departed.
Departed much more throughout. But Leonard, why don't you intro your pick?
Oh man, my
It's
pick.
another 2000s movie.
Another 2000s movie.
The Yacht.
Top billing as well, but not the depth into which The Departed has. This movie I chose, actually, I would have chosen for another prompt we're doing this season, but we've already done this. My movie is the Denzel Washington led Training Day. Boy, Ethan Hawke. It was directed by was it Anthony Fuqua?
Antoine
Fuqua.
Yeah, and
From Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
oh really?
He's actually from the Hill District, which is the area my dad is from. So,
Wow.
I kind of had a connection to both these movies because Scorsese is my favorite director, and then Fuqua's from where my dad grew up and the city I grew up in. So,
Oh yeah, he directed it, and it was written by David Ayer.
I like to put on record that the two white guys recording this podcast both knew how to pronounce Antoine Fuqua. You're saying Anthony Fuqua?
Anthony Fuqua.
Anthony Fuqua. Get some beer in here. My movie
This
is
PCP is kicking in, I gotta say.
yeah, we have another police movie, but this time it's the LAPD. We're following. His name is Alonzo Harris, the lead detective head of the narcotics division in the LAPD. He's kind of like the big bad wolf. He's never in the office. His car is the office, and he's out there. In the movie, we don't necessarily know the scenario he is at the beginning. We see it from the scope of Ethan Hawke's character, Jake Hoyt, where it's his first day in the narcotics division. And he's a regular street beat cop who is now trying to make detective. So he has joined the narcotics division, and he is working today with Alonzo, and Alonzo basically is putting him through a test. He said,
It's
if
a
you
training
can make
day.
it, a training day, if you can make it, like staging, like if you make it through today,
Yeah.
you can be a part of this squad. And at one point at the beginning of the movie, Ethan Hawke's character Jake Hoy says, he's like, I'll do whatever you tell me. He's like, because he was like, you want to make
right.
detective? He's like, I'll do whatever you tell me.
That's right.
And then another point, he's like, so what do you think about this? And he's like, I'll think whatever you want me to think. And he was like, all right.
Yeah.
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 And what we think it's a training day for Jake's character, but the entire time there has been a plan to make a couple moves because Alonzo has gotten himself into a situation with the Russian mafia.
It's always the Russian mafia.
He beat up some dude in Vegas who was connected that he did not know about, put him in the hospital, and he has been planning weeks for this day to have Jake, and it's all a setup basically.
Which, by the way, I was even thinking like, not to interrupt, but this
No,
I
please.
think this is an interesting idea, which is a weird thing to say about an idea I had. I had this idea, and I think it's interesting.
We'll decide if it's interesting.
I think it'd be dope to do a second version, like Training Day 2, but show it starting with Alonzo, the night that he ends up beating up that Russian dude, and then the movie ends with kind of him starting maybe the process of planning this, just to see like the whole because one thing that's fascinating to me about this movie is like, how the fuck did he plan this?
Yeah.
And like, how did he think that this all would work out the way that it did?
Yeah. And one of the first moves he has to make, he has to present it like he's training this kid, and he takes him to one of his informers, some 17-year-old drug dealer who tells him sells weed, and they bust some kids, get the weed from these kids, and then he makes him smoke it. And he always presents things in a way to where, like, you're going to be undercover. You could be killed at any moment. He was talking about his wife. He's like, don't talk about my wife, man. He's like, oh, there are going to be people out here who are going to talk shit about your family, your wife. You got to be fucking prepared for this. And he presented it the same way. He was like, if you don't smoke this shit, somebody's going to kill you.
Right.
So he puts a gun to his head and he's like, smoke that shit. And the dude smokes it. He apparently hadn't smoked weed since like 12th grade. And then about 20 minutes later, he finds out that he smoked PCP.
I didn't know you like to get wet though.
One of the most famous lines of all fucking time.
In
I
a
feel
movie
like.
that is packed to the gills with like, Denzel has all of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Denzel-
Ethan Hawke is in as many scenes of this movie as is Denzel, and
But this
no
is
discredit to
Denzel's
him.
movie,
But
like-
Denzel just eats him for lunch as he does like the rest of this movie. This is an interesting thing because we talked about all the star power in The Departed, like down to Anthony Anderson, who you might forget is in the movie because there's so many famous people. I feel like Denzel, nothing against that ensemble, but Denzel takes all that charisma that The Departed parcels out over like 10 people and just absorbs it himself, to the sense of like the poster for that
Absolutely.
movie is Denzel in the foreground and Ethan Hawke in the background walking behind
Yeah.
him. That's
Literally taking my
I'm
argument
taking
so
your
late.
argument.
Literally
Oh,
taking my
I'm
argument.
making it. I'm making it. I'm
Because like
saying
Ethan Hawke is technically the protagonist.
yes.
The story
But
is about
you look
him.
at the poster and it is fucking
yeah.
Denzel Washington, clear as day, and it's out of focus Ethan Hawke in the background.
And it's Ethan
like-
Hawke's story. Like, it's his character's story. He's the protagonist. Denzel Washington's the antagonist.
I mean, I think it's both their stories, but I like how, as a viewer, you're presented it as like, this is Ethan Hawke's story.
Totally.
But then you're finding out, no.
Yeah.
He's just a pawn in Lonzo's plan.
Totally.
But then you see that Hoyt's not no bitch and fucking...
Former safety.
former strong
that's right.
safety, North
strong safety.
Hollywood
That's
High.
right. I follow all the great players.
Dude, like all the scenes are just so good.
They're great.
And like at the time, you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is happening, that's happening, and it kind of just feels like kind of random, and he's just taking them on these things. But it's like all of this is planned out to a T, and everything matters, and there are so many just little, it's like a succession of just different scenes, and every scene is so fucking good.
Yeah,
the scene where they're robbing Macy Gray's house.
Who, by the way, kills it.
She's so good.
She's so good in
she does so much cigarette and nails work.
Her
Just like the
behavior
way
is
she
so
takes a
good.
drag from that
Yeah,
cigarette.
totally.
She looks like she's kind of tweaking, but also she's like kind of aware of she's like, and she's actually tweaking Ethan Hawke as he's like telling her to stay down, and she's like not afraid of him at all. Much like Denzel, like everyone disrespects Ethan Hawke in this movie. Even his goatee pales in comparison. He and Denzel have like a goatee off. They both got goatees. Doesn't matter. Denzel's
all
just
scruffy.
Yeah,
and
his is
shit.
scruffy.
Like, Alonzo's just
He's got-
lined up black, like perfect.
Is this? I saved this question to talk about later, but I just want to ask it now. Is this Denzel's best performance? Denzel Washington is an actor with multiple Academy Awards.
I feel like the Academy would say so, but
I'm asking you.
I think
is
it's
this his best performance?
I think it's his most memorable performance because I would put it up there with like in terms of like powerful, unique, memorable performances. To me, it's up there with like Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York. It's up there with like Marlon Brando in The Godfather. Like with the performance being so specifically like just fucking huge. It's like anthemic almost.
he is such a great actor that his semen it produces great actors.
Yeah.
Like his
Yeah.
son is like such an amazing actor, and it's like how
He's so
are
good.
you both so good at this? This is crazy.
He has that like where he, when he sits down at the table, because we're watching this movie from Ethan Hawke's perspective, so we as different things are going on, like you get the sense right up top. And when he sits down at the coffee to get coffee with him when we first meet him and stuff, he's like, I'm trying to read my paper. He's like giving him a hard time then. So you get the sense that he's a rough character right away. But you convince yourself, like, because you have to, because that's what Ethan Hawke is doing throughout the movie. Okay, well, he's making me smoke drugs in the car and stuff. But he is, like, when he tells you, he's saying, well, if you're out on the streets and they ask you to smoke, you better smoke that shit. You better not hesitate, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, and he's having him do fucking crazy things. And I'm sitting there as a viewer, and I'm like, the second he puts a gun in my head and he tells me to smoke this shit, I'm getting out of the car and I'm being like, I'm going to just go and be a meter maid for the rest of the day. I don't need to do this life. But when Denzel's telling you to do it, and he's like, you got to do it for this. I'm like, fuck, I do. Like, he makes you, his charisma makes you,
so
I understand why Ethan Hawke does all the shit and follows him as far as he does. To the point where he almost gets popped in a bathroom by a few gangbangers. And like, only then is he like, now I'm putting my foot down.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's just like the way it's written is just so perfect. It's so easily consumable. It's like they're literally in a car and
it's
it
very
just
simple.
stops. It's just like scene.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, this happened. Let's talk about it in the car. New scene. This happened. Let's talk about it in the car. New scene. And like I said, like the scene. I feel like Ethan Hawke does have some great scenes in it when he is like beating up the two dudes where they set up that scene where they're about to like rape this 14-year-old girl, and then the scene with the fucking the homies, the essays in the house, like
for sure.
that scene is fucking amazing.
It's great.
And like
kind of was the perfect, like he kind of, and this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment to Ethan Hawke.
I know what you're about to say.
But like his acting style was kind of the perfect juxtaposition to Denzel's character.
Exactly, because he's supposed to be the rookie, the
Exactly.
wide-eyed, just like ready to do whatever he can. To
Totally.
you're also the best cop he can be. Like,
you're not stealing that movie from Denzel.
No way.
So it's like, let him be the larger than life character and you be the, like, the cop who's trying to do good but isn't that flashy and isn't that whatever, like
Now,
he's the
billing in this movie wasn't as big as The Departed, but all of the roles played by people, the performances were amazing. Like Smiley, Sniper, and Moreno, the three guys, Cliff Curtis, Noel Guglielmo, Raymond Cruz. I messed up that one name, but like,
don't forget Snoop Dogg.
Like,
maybe Snoop Dogg's best performance of his career.
oh yeah, it was just like, damn, man, And Scott Glenn, I didn't like Scott Glenn. Just like the first scene where they come in and they're talking to him, and
that story about the snail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you understand what because he says so? He's like, when you understand the story about the snail, you'll understand.
Was he just
what
fucking with him?
I think so.
I think he was just fucking with him, right? Because I've been like, I don't know.
He's on PCP. He doesn't know. I do like that he laughs, and then Denzel's like, "Why are you laughing? That's not funny." Like, yeah, I think
Ava
we've all had that.
Mendez.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what Ava Mendes was really known for before this movie, and maybe I'm missing something obvious, but I do feel like people were very aware of Ava Mendes after this movie. She looks great.
So funny because I don't care about celebrity or have like celebrity crushes or whatever, but when I was a teenager, I was in love with Eva Mendes because of this movie.
Same.
Dude, I was just like,
Absolutely.
it was this and All About the Benjamins. Like they came out at like the same time.
Was she in that?
She plays Mike Epps' girlfriend in All About the Benjamins.
That's right.
I've seen All About the Benjamins, but I don't remember it. I have to
It's
rewatch
through the lottery ticket and the diamonds.
Yeah.
And like book him. He's like he plays a what is it? Bounty hunter.
Yep.
And Mike Epps is just like some con who.
Because Cube will never play a cop. He plays a character that was clearly written as a cop, and then Cube got attached to the movie, and he's like, I'm not playing a cop. I'll just play a bounty hunter who goes to an office and has a gun. It's like, you're a cop. It's like, no. I've made fuck the police. I'm not a cop.
I feel like we could go back to The Departed, but one more. Speaking of rappers, Dr. Dre too. Dr. Dre was great.
Oh yeah, Dre was in it. That's right. Yeah, it was so L.A.
It was so LA, and it's just
so
like this
LA.
is so Boston, this is so LA. Like it's
You're
kind of
right.
funny how our choices parallel
But
each
I
other.
will
in
say,
certain-
I will say, it was clear that Training Day was absolutely completely filmed in L.A. Like,
Oh,
you could
100%.
tell.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I read an article recently about the jungle and how it's starting to be gentrified.
Is that a real? This is my LA ignorance. Is that a real
It
like?
is, yeah.
Okay.
That's
where like that's like
street
where
was,
all the blood. That's where like the Bloods in LA like originated. Like
and all the vast majority of the people that are in that scene are all residents of that area.
Oh, cool.
So like those were, I mean, I'm sure paid extras, but they all like lived in that area. They were all.
I've seen this movie before, only one time before. I loved
Really?
it. I've seen it. Yeah, I never owned it. I guess maybe that's why. I was also very aware of it, pop culture, but I'd only seen it once before.
Yeah.
I forgot that part of it, the jungle part, and
Yeah.
I do like because it's a very simple movie, and I don't say that to slight it. I just think it's two guys, and one's trying to trick the other, and blah blah blah. But like, I like that almost like on a mythic level of when he takes him to his. It's not even his home; it's where his mistress lives.
Yeah.
But he's got a kid with her, and he's clearly there all the time. But I like that it's like the end of a cul-de-sac of the baddest place in LA, and a cop, a narc, lives at the end of that, and no one fucks with him. Like there's
Yeah.
something very like, I live in hell kind of a sort of part to that, and I really like that.
Yeah.
they did such a good job. Like Denzel's already badass enough, but like it was like this character was written for him.
Totally.
Like, he was the perfect character for him to play.
And it's actually, people don't know, but the story of this podcast, the story of our friendship, is actually very similar to Training Day. It was Leonard, he got me high, he had me record our
And I
first
was like,
podcast,
"Listen,
and
man,
he was sort
You
of.
want to do this fucking podcast or not?
You held a gun to my head at one point.
You want to go to jail? You want to go home?
Okay. Obviously, Training Day, amazing movie, great movie.
Well, we talked about how LA it is. Well, let's see. I grew up in New Jersey. We've talked about this on. We're both East Coast guys, but I grew up more Northeast Coast. I grew up in New Jersey. I was kind of spent a lot of time in and around New York, and then I went to school in Boston. What is your guys, if any, like relationship to Boston? Because I feel that The Departed, despite I've said it's filmed partially in New York, it gets right a lot of the feel of the city of Boston, and I don't know, like if you guys have.
I have no relationship to
You've never
Boston.
been.
I've never been to Boston, but I hate Boston. Like I don't. It's weird how like humans are like that, but like they're just like I've never been to Ohio, but I hate Ohio. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like everything Ohio represents, I just don't.
I've been to
like.
Ohio. Also hate Ohio. Been there many
But,
times.
I just know that Boston has an issue with racism and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
as a black man, like I've never had the urge to go to Boston.
Sure.
I've been to New York City. I've been to a lot of places. If people who know me, who maybe listen to the podcast, like I really love going to cities and going to different like ballparks or stadiums and arenas. And I plan on going to Boston at some point, but I always push it back.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'll go to Boston sometime. And it's cold as fuck. So it's just like, but I've met a lot of cool people from Boston though, so it's like I don't have any real personal reasons not to like Boston.
Do you, James, have any? I mean, Boston, I feel like is. Or sorry, you talk to it. I guess I was like, being from Pittsburgh. I feel like there's a similar working class vibe to Boston, but I don't know if
Well, I should say that like my experience with Boston, and actually I do kind of describe where I grew up in Pittsburgh, kind of like a Southie Boston type of area, right? Like, very working class, white, racist, homophobic, like that sort of like Catholic as fuck, mainly like, not super homogenous. I mean, super homogenous. Yeah. Like the white people that I grew up with were mainly either Italian or Polish, right? And like Boston, I think is similar. Like there's so many fucking Irish people there. And so there are similarities, but my experience with Boston is a little bit more touristy, I think.
Sure.
So like, I've been to like Cambridge, whatever you say. And, to all the like historical areas, and like I've been to the Cheers bar and like that sort of thing. I don't really have much of a relation. In Little Italy, I went
Faneuil Hall and those like
But I don't
have been on the T.
I don't have a relationship to like fucking partying for a weekend in Southie Boston or something like that. So I don't really. Mine's much.
And I'll say I went to school there, and I was not partying in Southie either. So if anyone listening to this thinks I'm trying to like front Boston cred that I don't have, but I like what you're describing though. I feel like this movie, The Departed, captures well, which is that kind of it's very white, it's very working class. It's also very, there's parts about it's very educated. I mean, there's so many universities in Boston. There's many sides to it, but what I like that this movie gets is like, I feel like it's captured a few different ways. There's that scene where Damon, newly minted detective in the Boston Police Department, he's like going around trying to find, I think they call it like the case of the missing scumbag or whatever, where that guy gets killed by the airport, and they're going around, they're talking to his mother, and his mother's like, she sees Jack Nicholson drive by sort of in an intimidating way, just like he drives by her place, and she says, if he got killed, he was probably involved with something that he shouldn't have been. And then she like closes the door on him. I feel like there's that kind of a feel to it. And then when they're interrogating DiCaprio, when they told him like, we're not going to make you a cop, but you can go to jail for a year, and then you can try to like get into Costello's crew. Wahlberg's just like picking him apart. He goes, oh, I know you grew up and wherever, and you had the nice thing. Yeah. Then you come down, you drop in your eyes, and you're pretending you're old school. Like, I feel like there's a lot of like, you ain't shit in Boston,
right?
Especially from people who are from there.
Yeah.
That this movie nails.
Totally.
And the screenplay, again, this is a remake of a movie, but I feel like while the plot is borrowed, all the trappings, all the setting and location just like bleeds into this movie and feels very authentic.
Yeah.
And it helps when you have guys like Wahlberg who did grow up in Southie Boston.
Yeah, that was the feeling that I got. It felt very authentic to me, but I don't know. So like this movie like is my viewpoint of Boston.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
It felt it felt pretty authentic to me as well. But I don't have the in-depth experiences I think that Quinn does with the city.
One thing I noticed about these movies is like both these movies is like no women in either one of these movies.
Yeah, women do not have great arcs in these movies. I noticed the same thing. Like, yeah.
Although Vera Farmiga, I think, is quite good, and I don't remember knowing really who she was much.
She was
before
great
this, but
she
she
was
as the
great.
psychiatrist who sort of is the link between Damon and DiCaprio both, even though they don't meet.
Yeah, it was like.
But I agree. I mean,
it
she's
was
the
like-
one. She's the one female role of substance in this movie.
But she also felt like such a prop though.
I agree. Like,
like-
it wasn't like a meaty kind of story
Yeah.
for her.
It was just be like, we got to find a way to connect these two dudes.
Yeah.
They gotta fuck the same girl, and he
Yeah.
can give her the thing. So like,
She is sort of a symbolic like go between the two characters that the movie's actually interested in. I agree completely. But I guess what's there to say? Like, did these movies? I remember when Denzel like brings Ethan Hawke into his car for the first time. Is when he's like, "The car is the office." What's the name of the song that plays when he turns on the car? Is it
Dre and Snoop, right?
oh yeah, still DRE.
Yeah.
Still DRE.
But like when that song comes on when he turns that car, I got such a like nostalgia hit, and I'm like, if you played I mean, this movie's 20 years old now, I guess. But I was like, if you played that today, in my head, I was like, oh, that's a throwback. And I was like, no, this song was new when this movie came out. And it was like this weird thing where
so good.
You'd play that song anywhere in LA, and people are like, oh shit. Like,
it bangs.
I'm going to play it anywhere in America, and people are
It
like,
bangs.
oh.
And I feel like Scorsese, I guess I go
great
back
beat.
to that movie then to say like Scorsese also there's like a ton of good needle drops. I think we're going to talk about pop culture and things like that later, but like there's I was not familiar with Dropkick Murphys before.
Oh, yeah,
but
man.
like they use the needle drop. There's other songs too.
great,
Comfortably
yeah.
Numb is used to great effect, but like they throw to Shipping Up to Boston so many times, and then I love that Thelma Shoemaker, who's been Scorsese's longtime editor, they'll just drop it when like someone opens the door, like in the middle of a song. They don't fade it out. They don't edit it out. They'll just drop this music as quickly as they cue it. And I feel like that's been you talk about being a big Scorsese fan, and music has always been such a
Huge
what's it
part
called?
of
Soundtrack, like songs.
Totally.
He soundtracks his movies with songs, not with scores, or he uses both. But like I think he's known for like he uses this Rolling Stone song in this scene here for and it's interesting because Scorsese.
When he's the montage of Costigan like really getting like into the crew, like into
he's playing with his new guys or whatever.
yeah, when he's like they blow up the car and they're just like beating the shit out of dudes.
Yeah.
That's when the Rolling Stone songs is playing during that montage.
Let It Loose. I remember the trailer used. Oh God, it's just the shadow away. I don't forget the name of that song, but yeah, I mean he's obviously he's got, but like Scorsese famously Italian, famously Mean Streets, Goodfellas, Casino, Raging Bull, all these stories about Italian Americans. This was at the time in 2006 a very interesting departure for him. He was talking about like the Irish mob, which does not really get near as much play in pop culture as the Italian mob. And the difference between Irish and Italians, as I'm looking at Leonard, it's like but there is like a real distinction there between like Irish and Italian sensibilities. And there's that scene where the Italian guys are trying to shake down the shop owner, and he's like, "I don't know what to tell you. I don't have money,
motherfucker.
Yeah.
Sing. How about your friend? You don't even know my name."
Yeah.
This guy, I don't want to. Yeah, they're doing like it's almost like Scorsese riffing on himself a little bit. He's like, I can't control what this guy does if he. And then what does DiCaprio say? He's like, what do they got? Not got cannolis down there?
You guys from Providence?
Yeah. And then he just beats the shit
Dude,
out
I
of them.
love it's just so interesting to me. Just like humans are funny. It's like, all right, if there aren't any black people around, we're just going to hate Italians or we're just going to hate Irish people. And it's like, you're not us. We hate you. Like, it's so,
It's not Anglo-Saxon. Fuck it. Yeah.
yeah, it's so wild to me.
You know who else is great in this movie is the dude who plays Nicholson's kind of like right-hand man.
Oh, Mr. French.
Mr. French.
Ray Winstone, I think,
Yeah.
is his name.
What a
Yeah.
period.
Oh, the
He is
cranberry
so
juice.
He's terrifying.
That's not a guy you can hit, but that's almost the guy you can't hit. And I make the calls and I say
Yeah.
you can't fucking hit him. Yeah, I love that.
It's so funny, just like the juxtaposition between these movies is like they have the same vibe and
Yeah.
energy, but they're presented in such a different way. Like Departed is such a more like complicated story, and you have to really like if you watch Training Day, you have to maybe the second or third time you can like pay attention a lot more, and then you realize what's happening. That there is a little bit more it's a more of a complex situation.
Totally.
But The Departed is like, no, you had to be paying attention the entire time. Like the first time on Training Day watch, you're like, oh, that was fun, and you realize it, and you're like, oh shit, I need to go back and watch this again. And now I'm seeing how he's setting up this the entire time. With The Departed, there's just so much going on. But it's so good. It's like
There's so many similarities between these movies. Like they both are like really city centric, right? Or specific. They both have really charismatic bad guys by legendary actors. They both kind of like portray corruption in police departments, and like it's really interesting. They're both really good.
Well, if I can, we've talked about Denzel is the King Kong of Training Day, and he's the antagonist. What do you guys think of Nicholson in this movie? We haven't talked about Jack Nicholson.
dude, he's so fucking good in this movie.
Man,
when he just
so
all
fun.
of the him hating the Catholic priest and stuff like that, I was like, I just love that because
sucking on
like
their
the
peckers.
fact that he's lived in Boston his whole life. He's probably known so many people that's been molested by fucking priests that he's just like he's fucked.
He's great. He's great.
Yeah,
Super
the little
charismatic.
moments, the big moments. This isn't reality TV, like you said. Like every moment with him just feels like this dude is a crazy ass mob boss.
I've heard some people like, I guess in the years since this movie's come out, be like, Nicholson's too over the top or whatever. And there were sort of things because Whitey Bulger is the famous like Irish mobster who at the time was still at large, and so people were saying like, he's doing a take on Whitey Bulger, which I wasn't aware of and don't care about really. But I feel like I kind of want larger than life, over the top Jack Nicholson, so that's not a problem for me.
100%.
And that scene where he's interrogating, he's like turning up the heat on all the guys because he knows there's a rat. And he brings him into the bar and he like smashes the fly and he's like, he's lighting the paper on fire. Apparently that was like the lines were scripted, I guess, but his demeanor and his way was all. And
I was
he had
wondering
a gun
about that.
Which listen, in the aftermath of like the Alec Baldwin situation recently. You look at guns in films, especially when they're not like, but he apparently had that gun that he takes out and he kind of like looks, he goes, I look at you and like, you're the new guy, Bill. And he like takes the gun out and he's like, girlfriend. And he's like, and DiCaprio, he didn't tell DiCaprio he was going to have that gun. So they have the camera on DiCaprio and apparently they use the takes where his reactions are like, oh, fuck. Because even if like, this is Jack, I know Jack. Someone takes a gun out and is like waving it around and acting crazy in the scene. And then there's the end of that scene, he walks away. And then he comes back and he's kind of hiding behind him and he's like, eat something. And like nobody knew. So Jack Nicholson went off the reservation a few times in this movie, I think. And to the benefit of the performances of the people he's with. Because I think this is one of DiCaprio's better movies. He'd worked with Scorsese a couple times. But this is where I feel like he, really feels like a comfortable, I think everybody's good in this movie.
Yeah, totally.
But,
I enjoy I feel like, Nicholson, at least later Nicholson especially, is kind of like a little bit over the top. I mean, the Joker and like, a lot of the stuff that he's done. I like Jack Nicholson.
Anger management.
Anger management, yeah, totally.
I haven't watched that movie. It made me, I thought about that movie when watching this, and I was like, damn, I haven't watched that movie in a long time. I remember being in the theaters and loving that movie.
I liked Anger
That's
Management.
actually a Ben Stiller movie.
Nope.
Who is it?
Adam Sandler.
Sandler. Fuck. Jesus Christ.
Did you smoke the PCP? Because I'm feeling fine, Leonard. I feel like you got it wrong. So I guess I just wanted to throw because I sometimes people are like, yeah, Jack Nicholson, he doesn't. Here's the thing. The last thing I'll say about like the Boston element of this movie, Boston people, having gone to school there and like knowing people, Boston people are so precious about their stupid accents that every time I see a movie, like you see any movie where someone's like a Boston guy and they'll be like, yeah, the fucking accent is. I'm like, first of all, that's the dumbest accent. This is the New Yorker in me coming out. I hate all Boston sports teams. I did go to school there and I appreciate the town and all that stuff, but I have a little bit of a rivalry with it. And when I hear people be like, fucking so-and-so's accent wasn't authentic, I'm like, I'm sorry he didn't sound enough like the weirdest, dumbest accent. It's like you said, Leonard, people live different places. They don't always sound authentic. So if he didn't drop his eyes to your liking exactly enough, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I feel like people who get on that stuff, I'm like, I don't care. If they're trying, I'm happy.
Yeah, I've lived in the South my entire life, and I don't go, hey, y'all, how you doing? Or I go, hey, man, shout out to come down to Star. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, there are people who talk both those ways and live within 30 miles of each other. You know what I'm saying? So, like, accents evolve through people and who you're around.
Totally. They change. Absolutely.
We can start to talk about the maybe get into our criteria, but I can't let this opportunity pass by, James. You mentioned growing up in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And I've only been there one time, and I had a great time. I saw a baseball game at PNC Park, and I was, walking around the city and
told you earlier,
seeing what it had to offer. Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful ballpark, beautiful city. I remember my friends and I were taking like Ubers around because we didn't rent a car or anything. And the guys, one of the times was driving us around. A few different Uber drivers like had the radio on. And I swear to God, like every time they cut to commercial, there would be a commercial that would come on. This has nothing to do with either of our movies, Leonard. I'm sorry. But it would be a commercial come on. And there were different commercials where someone's like, did you find out that your home was built over an abandoned mine? You can call this like class action lawsuit group. And I heard so many of them that I like started... I like Googled it because you're from a few different places in the South. I'm from New Jersey. We both live in LA. I've never heard of this thing. I know there are mining, but we were like, basically it's like, did your living room collapse into the floor? Like, it was this insane thing. And I'm like, is this enough that we have different people litigate? Be like, call us a class action line. And I Googled it, and it's like, apparently half of the city of Pittsburgh was built over hollowed out earth that had been mined 100 years ago. And this is like a problem for people, is that you come home and you put your briefcase down and the whole couch sinks into the ground, sinkholes and shit. And I was like, is this a joke? Like, I thought I was being... That's crazy. I thought this was like a punk situation or something at first. I was like, no, I guess this is just... Once I got in the second Uber that had the radio on with the commercial for it, I was like, so... I guess what I'm asking is, did you grow up in a mine or above any mines, or is this a real problem?
No, I mean, the only problem that I know of that relates to that is like Pittsburgh is really hilly. And where I grew up, there's like tons of hills. And my house, we lived in a tiny, like 1-story house on top of this hill. And like the back of the house started to fall down the hill a little bit and separate the house. So they had to get like these big ass chains to come and like slowly, like a vice,
like braces or some shit.
100%.
Like clamp the two parts of the house together.
Correct. Yeah.
And just for the rest of that's the house now, or is it like so that they could shore up the foundation?
So like once a month they would come and they would turn it a little bit tighter. And then, slowly but surely over time, it came back together over like the course of 3 years or something.
That's
like
funny.
that.
I grew up in the hills, like Lynchburg, Virginia is known as the Hill City. Like our minor league baseball team is called the Hill Cats. But I'd never heard of that before. That's interesting.
I was in high school. But yeah, very hilly city. It's very similar to like San Francisco, like those types of hills.
So if you live in the Pittsburgh area and you're listening to this and your house has ever kind of come apart at the seams down a hill, or if you're built over an abandoned mine and you found out after the fact, you can write in you can email fvfpodcast@gmail.com and just let us know, because I'm very interested and I'm continue to be fascinated by this. So thank you for speaking to it a little bit, James.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the movies. Let's get into, Leonard, our patented 5 criteria through which this is a gauntlet through which we run both of our films, just to give you, James, a better sense of what we're talking about, how these films hold up, how we just looking at them through different prisms, and then eventually we will have to pick between them and see which better fits the prompt.
Before we do that, I want to ask you real quickly, James.
Yeah.
What movie would you have chosen for this prompt?
Oh, good question.
Oh, what movie would I have chosen for this prompt? Oh, that's a really good question.
Or even if you don't have a singular one, were you thinking maybe that we'd pick any or something like that? Yeah, like any that come to mind, but... We did mention My Girl already.
Yeah.
Isn't Steel Magnolias one? That's the movie I was thinking about earlier. A movie with like a lot of women.
Thelma and Louise.
Thelma and Louise.
Oh, yeah. Thelma and Louise is a good one.
We're just spoiling a ton of movies where they're good.
I know, right? Yeah, I'm trying to think of like...
The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense.
Does that count? He dies before the movie starts.
Oh,
if you
maybe
picked it,
not.
I would have.
He's the main character.
I would have played Heavy D on you. Yeah, but he's dead the whole time.
Yeah, he dies. He's alive at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, that's right. You do see him before he dies. Okay.
Yeah. Give me a minute. I need to think.
Okay, yeah, I can come
yeah.
to
We'll go into the criteria. Our 5 patent criteria. Our first one is always
patented, trademarked. No one else can use this criteria.
Pop culture.
Pop culture.
These both have pretty heavy pop culture influences. One, I would say, way more than the other, though.
Really interesting.
I
agree with you that they're both heavily. I feel like for me, it's all in the quotes, but
I think it's the quotes because of the quotes from Training.
Right, yeah.
King Kong ain't got shit on me.
That's the one, yeah.
That's the one. There is no one specific quote from The Departed that I think of.
I'm not saying it's as good as King Kong, but I'll get you close. I don't think they're the first to say it, but I think if you put in the Boston accent, it definitely belongs to The Departed, and it's I'm not a fucking cop. And I feel like you have absolutely, since that movie came out, there's just a bunch of, let's say what it is. These are both great movies. I think they hold up regardless of who you are. If you watch them, you can see the merit in them. But these are also movies that college freshmen have posters of on the walls of their dorm. You know what I mean? They're very like, oh, I went on a first date with this guy, and all he kept saying was, I gotta watch The Departed, and all the like in Training Day, Denzel is like.
I've never really gotten that. I mean, I guess that makes sense with The Departed.
I think it's both. I've seen a lot of Training Day posters.
I've seen a lot of Training Day posters.
Yeah,
I've never
for sure.
really seen many Departed posters.
Maybe not as many, but I definitely
The Departed's
think,
not as quotable, right?
I think The Departed just falls under the Martin Scorsese, like
Totally.
under the Leonardo, like the different actors, like Cloud or like Zeitgeist.
Right.
Like it falls under their thing, but I don't see it as a standalone as much as Training Day.
Yeah.
What
What
are
it's
some?
like you like to get wet? King
Yeah,
Kong ain't
go
got
through
shit
some,
on
and I'm gonna
me.
find some Departed ones. So I keep going.
I'm trying to think of some other ones. I do.
You want to go home? You want to go to jail?
You want to go home? You want to go to
He
jail?
also says, my
nigga, that meme.
Yeah.
Just a picture of Denzel with the cigarette.
It's
in
a
his
great
hand.
meme.
That is a.
Yeah.
That's you know.
It's not what you know; it's what you can prove.
Okay.
You in the office, homie.
I do
love
think
that
like
line.
everyone's Denzel impression. Those who have them, they're doing Denzel in training.
Totally. Oh, absolutely.
It's not a really famous line, but when I was watching it, it was funny to me. When he gets Snoop Dogg and he sticks the pin in his throat, and he's like, "What's that? It's crack, nigga."
Jimmy Crack Corn.
Jimmy crack corn. 10, 20,
Yeah.
30. God damn, bro. Every scene is.
Every scene's like really powerful, man. And you're right, like so many memorable lines that really stick out, like in Denzel's performance. Even like little shit like go get yourself a baseball stake. Like little like these little specific like lines are I love it's it's very quotable. Very quotable.
Here's a couple that I'm just finding from IMDb that I probably agree that if it's like on the weight of the quotes, I give it to. I don't think any single thing from The Departed is King Kong ain't got shit on me. I mean, I think that could be put on Denzel's tombstone
For sure.
and
for sure.
You know, but I'm just gonna throw some out from The Departed that I feel like when they're talking to Wahlberg says Wahlberg has a lot of the best ones. Where he goes, maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself. And then he also has that line where he says, my theory on feds is like mushrooms, feed them shit and keep them in the dark.
I love that line. Mark Wahlberg had a lot of great.
Yeah.
great
I'm the guy who does his job. You must be the other guy.
Yeah,
That's a
Mark
great
Wahlberg
line.
delivers all the dope lines.
Yeah.
on this one.
Don't laugh. This ain't reality TV. That's Nicholson. And also, this might just be specific to me, but I had a roommate in college who had a friend who any room he would enter, like I didn't like hang out with this guy, and it got kind of old, but it stuck in my head. Anytime this guy would enter a room or like the cafeteria or wherever, he would just be like, "Who let this IRA motherfucker into my bar?" Like there's just a lot of cranberry juice. What are you on your period?
Oh yeah, cranberry
What are you
juice.
on your period is probably the one that I would say the most to me. We didn't talk about the scene, but in The Departed, but like the he's not paying attention to me. He's a cop. She's a cop.
I love that. Yeah.
He's a cop.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that scene, and then Leonardo William Costigan comes out, and he's like he's a cop, and he's like, what? Like just the way they set that scene up.
Did you know most good-looking women are cops?
And then he steps out, and then he like just knowing he's on fucking edge
Yeah.
about getting caught. That was just such a great scene.
He also like Jack Nicholson, and then I have a quick question for you guys.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson also has some really, now that I think about it, like just like kind of like micro moments that are similar to Denzel Washington, like when he throws the Coke on the
What was that scene? That scene was like, I think that scene was just to be like, this man is living the best life he can
It
live.
made no sense.
It just came out
I
of
think
nowhere.
it's supposed to
It's
show
like,
that he was.
don't come up till you're numb.
Yeah. That's a fucking dark scene.
That's dark. Also
down.
another dark scene is when he like pulls out that fake dick in
yeah.
the porn
Oh,
theater
God.
and just starts like jerking off. It's really funny. But here's what my question was gonna be. I don't know if this gets in the way of the momentum here, but
no.
what do you think would happen if Nicholson and Washington switched roles? Ooh. What would happen if Training Day was Jack Nicholson and The Departed was
trying to get into,
Denzel
like,
Washington?
Mob. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Obviously, I think the movies are better the way they are now, but I'll be honest, I don't think that they wouldn't work.
I
if
think
you
they would
swap
work.
I
them.
think
I
both
think they
would
both
work.
would work.
Yeah.
I 100% think both.
Yeah.
They'd be different.
Yeah.
But I think both would work.
King
The
Kong
stories-
ain't got nothing on me.
Yeah.
Like you can
You
absolutely
would have to
see
change,
Nicholson's
obviously,
version
the
of
background, like
Totally.
certain aspects.
Yeah.
But the overall like plot and idea of both movies work completely.
I think so too, and I think both of them would crush it. I think both of them would end up doing a really fun performance.
And we kind of get to see, actually, I mean, we're not talking, we know nobody picked this movie, but we kind of got to see a little bit of Denzel in that type of role in American Gangster. You get to see
Totally.
him as the
As a
Yeah.
Bob
kind
Oz,
of
but they're
monk.
very different.
He's
Very
more
different.
calculated.
Yeah.
Frank Lucas,
Yeah.
just like, but
he doesn't have the same kind of charisma that he had. It's not quite of like.
I got one more for you for the quotes thing, and it's from Alec Baldwin, who has a number of good ones. I do like his. This isn't the one, but that one where he's like, "What are you, a fitness freak? Go fuck yourself!" Like where he's like talking to
it's
Dave.
a great one,
But it's the
yeah.
one where he finds out that they can
Yeah.
hack the cameras, and he's like against the law, but it's like they can do it because this is potential terrorist activity. He goes, "Patriot Act,
Yeah.
Patriot Act."
So funny.
Which, especially in 2006, when I feel like it's very heavy. Like Patriot Act was not a thing. So to have a character who's ostensibly a good guy, although none of the cops in any of these movies, other than maybe Ethan Hawke, are really like, and Martin Sheen, are really spotless. But to have a character like championing the Patriot Act was just, I remember in the
So
theater that
funny.
got a huge laugh.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's also Martin Sheen right before they throw him out the window. I actually think this line doesn't work, and I don't like it. But there's that really weird scene where DiCaprio's going down the back steps, and he goes, "I'll stall him." And then the guys come out of the elevator, and they see Martin Sheen, and he just turns around with a cigarette, and he goes, "Any of you mugs got a light?" And then the next scene we see him, they're throwing him
So
out the window.
funny.
It's like probably because he said that groaner of a line. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell is that supposed to be?
Yeah. Any of you mugs?
Any of you mugs got a light? It's like a 1930s line.
I feel like we were talking about everybody except for like one person, but the scene with Matt Damon and Alec Baldwin where they're at the driving range and he's like, "Yeah, he's like, oh, you're getting married, huh? Yeah." He's like, "You got to let people you're not a homo or like that you're a good guy."
Women see the
Blah,
ring,
blah,
they
blah.
knew your dick works.
Yeah,
At least somebody can
he's
stand
like,
the
all
motherfucker.
the reasons why being married is good.
So
It's
funny.
so funny. That was a great scene.
People hate people with an immaculate record. I know that. I have an immaculate record.
Well, I feel like this kind of goes into the category of what holds up.
I got one more though.
Okay.
And it's because if this movie is about the Irish, which it kind of is, it's also about Boston. There's the line which I think everybody who's Irish appreciates, which is when Damon's like, "What if we just got out? What if we just went away?" He knows that the walls are closing in, and he goes, "I'm fucking Irish. I can deal with something being wrong for the rest of my life." I think about that line a lot when I think about how I don't process things, and I think
Oh,
about
that's
that
funny.
line specifically. It's like, yeah, that explains my dad.
That was such a great line. That was a great
That's a
line.
great
Anyway,
one.
okay, we could talk about quotes all day, so we'll go.
How well do these movies hold up?
I think they both hold up pretty well. I think there's some language in them that obviously is like, ooh, but at the same time, we're depicting bad men, and I don't
Yeah.
think that I'm going to hold that against these movies. I mean,
Totally.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold it against the movie. If it wasn't in the movies, I would be like, "Oh, this is fucking bullshit."
Totally.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, as far as cinematography, the
They both
script,
still look
the
great, yeah.
acting, they both hold up.
I do.
very
I
well
think
to
so
me.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing about The Departed, rewatching The Departed, is because they feature so prominently, is cell phone. Like you can place The Departed with like, and they also
yeah.
like, there's a lot of close-ups on cell phones, and like he's like texting from his
Totally,
pocket,
from his
or like the
pocket.
slide
Yeah.
phone, or there's so much call mom, tell her you're gonna miss dinner and stuff, and he hands like the clunky flip phone to him. That doesn't date the movie in a bad way, but it also is like, well, we don't have those anymore.
Yeah. It provides a little personality to it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like the sound work of like the sound of like with those phones coming out. They
Totally.
have cool effects. Right? I kind of made me weirdly nostalgic
Yeah,
for that era
same.
of cell phone technology.
Also, how like that motherfucker could text in his pocket.
Crazy.
Did you ever try that? Did you see that movie and try to do that?
Yeah.
I'm not embarrassed to say that I did. I put my phone in my pocket and try to send my friend a text from the home screen.
That's funy. I did not know.
No, what was it? No guns or something. Like I would try to text what Damon.
It was-
texted
yeah, I
in
think
that
it
movie.
was like no
It was
guns.
funny though. One of them had one of the phones they had in the movie was like one of the first phones I had, and maybe like the third cell phone I had. And I just remember it because I flushed it down a toilet on accident. It was like one of those little smaller flip phones.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it shot, like I was peeing and on my phone at the same time, and I went to go
on
like
your phone?
I was standing up peeing.
Poor choice already.
And I went to go put the phone in my pocket, and I missed my pocket.
Oh, man.
And literally, as I'm flushing, I'm putting my phone in my pocket, and it falls into the toilet, and swoop, goes into the toilet
While
gets,
the toilet's already in whirlwind.
Yep,
Okay,
gets
yeah.
stuck and clogs the toilet and gets stuck in the toilet. Thank God. This is when I lived in Atlanta and I was like 19 years old. So like I was living on my own. Like I couldn't afford a new phone. I couldn't afford to fucking call a plumber. That shit was gonna be like $400 or $500.
So you had two problems in one.
Yeah. So I just called my dad, who literally can build an entire house. He like can do whatever, and he just came and like took the toilet off of the like. He went and pulled the toilet up, got the phone out of the clog, and put the toilet back down for me, and then bought me a new phone.
I was about to say, the phone was dead, though, right?
No, the phone was gone. Like, my dad bought me a new phone. I was like, thank you so much, Dad. Like,
And that's why you're a junior. Yep.
Not going to change your name to Leonard Malton Jr.
never,
Your
never.
dad earned that.
But, yeah, I feel like both of these hold up pretty much.
I'm trying to think of anything from Training Day that feels dated. I think Training Day smartly doesn't rely on any technology that could have made it, like, dated in any, unless I'm missing something obvious.
Well,
like,
the fact that he gives, I mean, no, I was going to say the appliances, but those appliances people still use. Yeah.
You could
the
make
fact that
Training
they
Day
still
today.
release pigeons when he comes.
Yeah.
that is a cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like a.
I guess
going back
weed
to-
sales have changed.
That's.
Oh, yeah. The
Thank
fact
you.
that you wouldn't. Yep.
Weed isn't really, illicit the way it was in 2001.
Yeah.
No, the fact that he pulls them out, it does happen to contain PCP, but they think they're just doing a regular marijuana
Totally.
bust. And the way those kids who they've nailed, those white kids that are just scared shitless, and Denzel's twisting the earring of that one kid.
Oh, yeah.
It's
You know what a train is? I want to train on your girlfriend. He's like, yes.
yeah, it's absolutely the weed. The fact that that's all theoretically over just an ounce. I don't know. That's the one thing that doesn't.
It was like an eighth of weed, if that.
Totally.
It was like the smallest amount of weed.
This is also like, have you guys? These are very different movies, but are you guys ever seen the Richard Linklater Before trilogy with Ethan Hawke?
No.
It's basically
I've heard
Before
about
Sunset,
Ethan Hawke
after,
Before Sunset, after
I haven't
Sunset,
seen the third
Before
one.
Sunrise.
I've only seen the first one. I think.
So it's a movie. It takes place over the course of a day. The first one is Ethan Hawke is traveling in Europe on a train, and he meets this woman played by Julie Delpy, and they have like a 1 day kind of romance. They just walk around. I don't know if I forget the European city, but they just walk around and they kind of fall in love. And then the end of the movie, they're like, she lives not even where they are. She's going on the train. He's going back to the U.S. And they're like, it's like they come together just for 1 day. And it's like, does Ethan Hawke, this is a very
That's
different
cool.
version of that, but he only does movies where he just spends
one
one day
day.
with a character. And
That's
then,
funny.
it's kind of like the weirdest version of Before Sunrise. But
surprisingly, I own Before Sunrise and After Sunset.
Leonard, you contain multitudes, my friend. I'm not surprised by that. But
I own both.
this would make a very funny Ethan Hawke double feature. It's like you've seen him have a romantic day with Julie Delpy. Now watch Denzel Washington terrorize him for 24 hours.
So funny.
Oh man,
I like to think that character in that went home, became a LA cop, and then Denzel fucked with him. He's like, I gotta go back to Europe and find this woman. And then this was, at what point would you guys, I just wanted to know this before we get to our third and most important criteria, Leonard. At what point would you have bailed? Like, just be honest with who you are. And at what point would you have bailed on the training day? And for me, it would have been when, sometime in that coffee shop. I would not have gotten out of the coffee shop with Denzel when he would have been mean to me like he's mean to Ethan Hawke. I would have started to cry and ran out of there. But I feel like Leonard would have hung a little bit longer. I don't know where you would be.
A little bit longer.
I don't know if you'd make it to the murder, but I don't know, James, what your answer
I don't know
would be.
if I would have made it to
I'm
the
interested.
murder. After that motherfucker had me smoke PCP, because it wouldn't have been an issue with me smoking. I was
Yeah,
like, all right,
same. Yeah.
Once I found out it was PCP, and maybe I came out on the other end, I might have been like, all right, cool.
But would
whatever.
you be scared that he convinced you that,
After
like,
the
if you
nigga
step
shot
out,
at me after we robbed that house?
Oh, for sure.
I probably would have went in the house not knowing.
Macy Gray?
Yeah.
But then after the motherfuckers was shooting at me,
Yeah.
nah, dog.
No
that's
way.
it. Because it was crazy how close Ethan Hawke was
Yeah.
to dying. The bullet goes like right past him, like
Yeah.
when he's sitting in that passenger seat.
I like when he tells the valet, he's like, it's the black link or whatever it was with the bullet holes in the back.
With the bullet holes.
James,
He
how
says
far
it's
would
so-
you have made it? Be honest.
Oh, dude, I think as soon as Denzel Washington would have pulled a gun out and tried to make me smoke weed.
Yeah.
I mean, again, smoking weed is fine. I don't like to do it with a gun to my head. I think I'd
Gun
be
to the
like,
head early is pretty
Yeah.
aggressive. I got two things. We got to go back to pop culture for a moment. We did not talk about, and this is more in your favor, the Wayne Brady Chappelle sketch.
Oh my
The
god.
Wayne Brady Chappelle
Holy shit.
sketch
How did I
Yeah.
not
is
think
the
about
biggest
that?
takeaway from
like to
any
get
of
wet?
this. And honestly, when I was quoting it in my head, where he goes, this is not an option. I thought that was from Training Day. That's Wayne Brady to Chappelle in that sketch. I mean, that is maybe my favorite Chappelle Show sketch. It's a
great one.
I saw that sketch before I saw Training Day the movie, so it actually informed the. Yeah,
that's funny. Also, we talked about Malibu's Most Wanted earlier. They used the King Kong ain't got shit on me in Malibu's Most Wanted.
That's right. So we had to give some love. What's Chappelle doing today, by the way? So,
we don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about
all right, we talked about Whipping Bell. We didn't talk about the fact that Ethan Hawke made Denzel's son almost conspiracy to his murder by having him unlock the door and then being like, sit down in the closet. I'm like, you're going to give this kid a lot of fucking trauma if you kill his dad.
Yeah, that little kid is fucked.
Ethan Hawke, you're morally in the right. Don't get the kid involved. Be like, let me in. Where's your dad?
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's get down to the most part. We've been anticipating it the whole time. So first season, for example, James, we talked about like, was Samuel L. Jackson in any of our movies? And the idea was Samuel L. Jackson is in so many of the movies that we pick because they are spanning from the late 80s to the 2000s today, whatever. And Samuel Jackson just shows up in anything. He's the lead, he's supporting character, he's whatever. It was kind of the kiss of death because we wound up the whole first season we did this podcast picking no Samuel L. Jackson featuring movies.
Oh.
So, to the point where we made the last prompt of our first season favorite Samuel L. Jackson movie so we could finally give the man his due. We've been switching it up
every season since then. The next season we did
Gary
Oldman. Last season we did Steve Buscemi, and then this season we're doing was Luis Guzman in either one of these movies.
Oh,
do you know Luis Guzman, popular famous character actor?
I do know Luis Guzman.
He was not in either one of these movies.
I'm shocked that
he's not in Training Day.
I'm also shocked he wasn't in Training Day.
Because he also is a very LA guy.
Yeah.
Like he seems to me, I don't know where he's...
I've seen him at like coffee shops before in my neighborhood.
So usually this happens where he's not in either one of our movies. So we like to ask, where would he fit in either one of these movies, or who would you replace him with in either one of these movies?
I would have had him at the house.
At the house
where the three guys in Training Day.
One
where
of
the
the
three guys are going to
badass
kill Ethan Hawke. I think, the guy who, actually he's very scary. I think I would have just added a fourth guy and had him be Luis Guzman because I don't want to take anyone out of it. But the guy who gets really intense and he pushes that shit. Yeah. That guy was kind of, I was like, this guy's weird. But also if I was in that situation, that'd be the scariest dude. But I would have liked to. I think you can add him there. I think he can. Fit
I think he would be a member of the narcotics squad.
One of Denzel's guys. That's a good answer.
Oh, for sure.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna really throw you guys off. I'm gonna throw something crazy out there. What if he took Mark Wahlberg's role in The Departed?
Oh shit!
How weird would that be? I mean, I don't know that it works because Mark Wahlberg was so good in it.
Can you imagine Luis Guzman
just
subbing?
with the slippers on?
Yeah.
Him subbing out Mark Wahlberg in that exchange where it's like, fuck yourself. I'm tired of fucking your wife. How's your mother? Good. She's tired from fucking my father. And you just put Luis Guzman. That scene plays much more comedic.
Oh, so much more comedic.
So much more comedic.
So much more.
I've tried it because, like you said, this is a movie about white Irish cops, so I don't know who you'd take about.
He would have to replace like Anthony.
He would have to, Anthony Anderson.
And the rule of there could be only one non-white Irish cop in this movie. I guess he'd have to bump Anthony Anderson. And that could work because the Anthony Anderson role, unfortunately, isn't that well fleshed out. But I like your Mark Wahlberg replacement idea. I think that's controversial, but I appreciate
that.
It.
Would be hilarious.
I mean, it's super. It's a complete it's a big swing.
What if we made? What if I go saying I'm going to make Luis Guzman Eva Longoria's character?
I also forgot to mention during how well this hold up is Matt Damon held up as a douchebag pretty well.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
I do feel like I appreciate that he
gets overshadowed for sure.
But he was willing to look. He's he's got, I'm not, hey, listen, I don't, but his character, they only add it seemingly to kind of shows that he has like premature ejaculation problems that are hinted at. Like this movie,
he couldn't get his dick hard.
This movie makes him like take shots at Matt Damon, the movie star's image, in ways that I appreciate that he was willing. Because DiCaprio, he's like got to die at the end and stuff. But he still gets to be like cool and stuff.
Right.
But like Damon is kind of he's cucked by Costello a little bit.
For sure.
Bro, his face when he sees how much Madeline is crying, the therapist, at Costigan's funeral, him
yeah.
processing it.
Yeah.
That scene where
Wait
he's
a
like,
second.
"What about the
Did she
baby?" And she just
fuck?
walks right by him.
So good.
Oh
So good.
I agree. I appreciate Matt Damon in this because in that time he was like Jason Bourne. He was, the Good Will Hunting guy. I don't think he'd yet done a movie where it's like, what if you just play like a fucking dick? Like,
Yeah.
you're kind of. I like that's where he tells that other cop because he got promoted only because Costello, like, he's his boy and he like rides him through. He's like, "Oh, you like coming into work every day dressed like you're gonna invade Poland?" Like he's like taking shots. It's like this guy's just a prick. Like he's holding up the elevator so he can flirt with Vera Farmiga.
Bro,
I always
was
think
get
of the
off
other
the
people.
elevator. Just
I
get
want
off the
someone in
elevator.
the elevator to be like, "Hey, I got an appointment on 12." Like, is that nobody else just lets him do that? He's a dick.
Yeah.
He's a dick the whole movie.
He does a good job. Yeah, he's good at it.
It involves fucking
Yeah.
lying. I'm pretty fucking good at that. Yeah.
And the history of fire or pussy. That
Yeah.
was a great line.
Oh my god, him getting angry at the firefighters.
Dude,
is
that
favorite.
was
Go
a-
save a cat from a tree. Fucking
Oh my god, it was
firefighters acting like they got pussy for the first time in the history of fire or pussy.
That's it. That's the line.
All right.
So all right, Luis Guzman was not in either one of these movies.
I also have to get my last note about Training Day out of the way, as I really appreciate that scene where he first takes Ethan Hawke to Ava Longoria's place, which he didn't need to do, but
Ava Mendes.
Ava Mendes. I'm sorry, Ava Mendes. I hope that's the first time I made that mistake. And he,
said it.
I did. If I did, I know the difference. And I bought Ava Mendes's place, and Ethan Hawke just falls asleep on the couch with his son while they're in the other room fucking, and then they cut to a time lapse of the sun going down.
Yeah.
So where Matt Damon can't get it up in The Departed, Denzel is fucking long enough for like the sun to cross the sky.
Yeah.
Long enough where actually, maybe it was to his detriment because it allowed Ethan Hawke to bond with the kid enough for him to be like, "Let me into that," like later
So
on.
funny.
Which is like also like, why is this
His
happening?
sexual
But then
prowess
it's
led
like,
to his downfall.
Yeah.
If you're wondering like, why is this scene happening? Why is he going? It's so that he can make that connection with the kid. The kid can be like, I'm not gonna go to my dad, who's crazy.
It does also say a lot about like what Denzel's presence in this kid's life is. Like I did like that moment where the kid is like, it's that scene. Usually it's placed by like an animal, like a dog that has to choose between two owners or something. But
Right.
the little boy and Denzel's like, "Come to me," and Ethan Hawke's like, "Stay," and the kid doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I do think there's these characters. We kind of only meet them in the day, but we learn a lot about them through the context of the movie. Leonard, let's get into box office and stats.
And I'm already looking at
you're looking at yours?
ass Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Every time it's a black movie or like a black lead, do you know what Training Day's score is on Rotten Tomatoes?
I do, but it's only because I look. James, do you want to venture a guess of what you think it should get, or what you?
I mean, it should be in the 90s.
Right.
The review score,
Yeah.
73%
That's crazy.
from critics.
That's crazy.
The audience score, which I still think I'm not mad at it.
It's more in range with what
It's
it deserves.
89%.
Yeah.
Right. Which is right where it should.
Which is bullshit. But The Departed is 90%
Right.
by the critics and then 94% by the audience, which I get. I'm not mad at that.
Yeah. No,
But
they're both
73%
really
for
good movies.
Training Day?
That's
I
crazy.
think if you look also at, well, actually the difference there, IMDb scores, just to give you a different fan base perspective, Departed has an 8.5, which is very high. I don't know if I thought it'd be that high, and Training Day has 7.7, which those are both pretty elite IMDb numbers. If you get into the sevens, especially the high sevens or the eights, those are, I think they're rightly pegging both of these movies as classics, which I think they are. I'd say maybe the Scorsese factor, if The Departed was directed by Antoine Fuqua, I think The Departed would have been slightly. You see a movie from a revered auteur,
Right.
and this was the movie. Not that it would affect its Rotten Tomatoes, but this is the movie where Scorsese finally won his Oscar, and I think a lot of people have said, like, The Departed's good, but you should have given it to him for Raging Bull or
Yeah.
Goodfellas or one of, and they should have. So this was sort of like his makeup Oscar, and I think that maybe added to kind of like, oh, Scorsese still got it. And it
Totally.
didn't have to be his most vital movie, but the fact that he could still do it was maybe led to kind of a bump for.
And
That's funny.
I don't know why I'm
too.
arguing against
That-
my own movie, but
That's funny that you say that because some people were saying that this award was a makeup award for
Denzel.
For Denzel,
100%.
He won, Best Actor.
'Cause
And people were
making
saying
up for
Malcolm X.
Malcolm X and
any
for,
number of Titans.
no.
John Q.
Glory.
Glory.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
For Malcolm X and Glory.
Yeah.
So
Wait,
people
didn't
were saying-
Denzel win for Glory? No.
No.
This was his first win.
Okay.
He should have won for Glory.
Yeah, that's-
for
Yeah.
sure.
I know. I thought he has two though, right? Did he win for?
I think that.
I'm gonna look up at his IMDb just out of curiosity. I believe you. I just I'm curious what. Yeah, he's won 2 Academy Awards, and it was no, he did. He won Best Supporting Actor for Glory, and then he won Best Actor for Training Day.
Oh, okay.
And I remember it was significant at the time
That's
because
good.
a black, maybe Sidney Poitier had, but I think like a black man had never for decades won Best Actor. But he Best Supporting Actor.
I just remember.
Slightly.
I think it was Malcolm X. Where people were like, he should have won it for Malcolm
Yeah.
X.
He was
for
nominated
sure.
but did not win for Malcolm X.
Yeah.
He'd already had his Glory Oscar from that time, but he was nominated for Flight, Fences, Roman J. Israel Esquire. All right, now I'm just looking through, but he's been nominated a bunch.
Now I'm looking at people who have won 3 Oscars for Best Actor. Daniel Day-Lewis, who won 3 Best Actor awards. Frances McDormand, 3 Best Actresses. Meryl Streep, 2 Best Actors in a Best Supporting. Jack Nicholson,
Yeah.
2 Best Actors in a Best Supporting.
Not for
And then
this, not for
Ingrid
Departed
Bergman.
though.
Not for The Departed.
What's missing from that list, Leonard?
Who?
That list of people you just said. I thought you were going to get it like Denzel should have
Denzel's
3.
not
Yeah,
on
there are
there.
no black people on that list.
Yeah, no black people. Yeah.
Yeah.
No black people.
But I mean,
Denzel
the
should
Academy
be on
only
that list.
realized that they were around in about 1980, so it was, they got a little time to make up. All right, box office numbers.
Box office. Training Day made 104 million, 105, 104.9.
I wonder what the budget was because I bet it wasn't that other than like Denzel and stuff. It looks good, but there's not like huge explosions or big. Like I'm sure that's good return on the amount it cost to make that movie.
Yeah, let me see. It cost 45 million. Cost 45 million, made 105. So that's obviously a great return.
And has since remained like I'm sure that movie cleaned up on DVD and all those places that you don't see.
For sure.
Just
For
the
sure.
dorm room
You had to
posters
have the
alone probably made up that budget.
Yeah.
you had to have the fucking Training Day DVD, man. That 5 for 20 in the Blockbuster.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Departed cost $90 million to make, and it made, and I assume this is worldwide, it made $291 million.
Nice.
So also good.
Yeah,
Also, Scorsese, surprisingly, for the kind of legend status he'd already achieved, he was not like box office money until he kind of started working with DiCaprio. Like this movie in particular, I remember really made, a lot of money. And now he's kind of considered more of a short thing. I mean, although The Irishman had to go to Netflix, but like I feel like this kind of, I remember this being a big hit.
Yeah,
at
I
the
do
box
too,
office. I
yeah.
remember
Yeah.
everyone seeing it and
I
talking
saw
about
this
the
in
ending.
theaters.
I did too.
Yeah. It's funny. Training Day came on October 5th, 2001, and then The Departed came out October 6th, 2006. 5 years apart, like 1 day apart. And you know what? Maybe this probably may have hurt the numbers at the time, but this movie came out like right after 9/11. That's kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
shit.
a month, they still put it out.
It's weird when you see that happen. Like we were talking about another movie, Donnie Darko came out like 2 weeks after 9/11 or
Or
something.
they pushed it back because there was
Oh,
the
they
shit with
pushed
the
it because it
plane.
was supposed to.
It was
Yeah,
supposed to
because it's a
come
movie
out.
where a plane lands in
right.
someone's house, or a piece of a plane falls on someone's house.
That's
And that
right.
was supposed to come out like September 20th or something. And they're like, we got to push this to like
Yeah.
April the
Yeah.
following year.
That's right.
It is weird when you see like the context of when some of these movies come out, and yet Training Day still was incredibly. I don't know if it's the movie that I'd want to see first if you were grieving, after 9/11, but it did. The fact that it still made such an impression, because a lot of things got swallowed whole, and you don't hear about around that time.
All right.
Should we? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes we get to this point, and I'm like, oh, I wish we talked more about specific scenes or specific
know.
moments. I feel like we really did this time, so I'm comfortable transitioning into this is
Final criteria.
I
The
don't-
Final criteria. It's the
Take
first
it,
time I've
Leonard.
ever done that. I will never do it again.
probably the last.
Yeah.
You go, Leonard.
All right, I'll go first.
Well, I mean, I could go. I
No,
guess
I'll
I
go.
just you.
I felt like we were going to be a lot more argumentative.
I'm glad we weren't. We've been argumentative recently.
Yeah, but we weren't this.
Nice
They're
to
both
talk
good
movies.
movies. They're both really good.
So it's kind of interesting coming into my final argument.
And by the way, really fast, before you do, I did think of the movie I would have chosen.
Oh, perfect.
Gladiator.
We've discussed Gladiator.
we've
on
done
this. Leonard had
Gladiator.
never seen
Nice.
it. I gave him Gladiator last season.
And I chose a Martin Scorsese film.
was that a best period piece movie?
Best
I
period
think.
piece.
And we gave him Gladiator.
Gangs in New York.
Fun.
Yeah,
And
Gladiator is a great
won.
one.
Yeah.
Our guest was it was one of his favorite movies.
He came on the pod. He's like, Gladiator is one of my favorite movies, and I just sat back the rest of the time. I just felt like I had like a 3 touchdown lead with 2 minutes on the clock. And I'm like,
Right.
just run it. Just don't say anything.
Run the ball.
Yeah. Just take a knee.
Yeah, both of these movies are great, but the prompt is, best movie where the lead character dies.
Which is interesting and fun, not to cut into it, but because it's that's not an emotional thing. Both of our characters die, so it's really going to come down to James.
I thought maybe you were going to come with the argument that Denzel wasn't the lead character. Maybe he's not the protagonist. He probably is the antagonist. But the movie is it's Denzel's movie.
Right.
He is the main character. And in this film, at the beginning, I don't think you're like, oh, this dude's going to die. Like, certain movies you're like, this dude's going to die at the end of this movie. You kind of know it. It didn't necessarily feel that way. It was like, it was kind of weird. You start to see the angst and the anxiety that he's having. He's like, seems so cool, but he's really trying to get this shit done because he is going to die at midnight if he doesn't get this done. So I like the fact that that is such a major plot point in the movie, even though you don't necessarily know it from the beginning. It's kind of like his driving decisions. Like, I have to rob this house to pay off these dudes, to get a warrant, to rob this guy, to get this money to these Russians by midnight, or I'm going to die. And he was such a good fucking character. Like, the character that Denzel played is just amazing. Won an Academy Award. Still, when it's kind of synonymous, like they go hand in hand. Alonzo Harris and Denzel, he was fit for this role. So I feel like this movie really delivers on the dam. Literally, the last scene is Ethan Hawke walking into his house, but the scene before that is Denzel. There's like a 5-minute scene of Denzel's last moments.
Yeah,
and he's fucking lights that cigarette.
Yep.
Fucking smokes that cigarette after being lit up by hundreds of bullets and just like, yeah, you shot me in the ass. So like that death scene is so fucking awesome.
The jungle turns on him.
Great.
It's so awesome. And with The Departed, the deaths are kind of like Leo's death. Boom, quick,
totally,
just like happens. All the deaths are kind of out of nowhere. Jax is like, he's shot, and that scene is kind of cool, but it's a little off. There's not as much emotion to the scene. And then Matt Damon, his character, is also another quick one, but it's also like, fuck yeah. Like, you're kind of happy that he dies. But I don't know I feel like he's the least main character out of the three. With Quinn's choice, it's kind of wishy-washy on who's the main character. You can make the argument for Jack Nicholson. You can make the argument for Leonardo. You can make the argument for Matt Damon.
All who die.
Exactly. But in my movie, the main character dies, and it is the tipping point of the movie. It's what it was all built up to. So that's why I think my movie is the better movie where the main character dies.
Thank you, Leonard. You called it correctly. You saw through me that I was absolutely going to mention, so I may as well, because I thought I had a whole thing planned for it. Denzel is the character in Training Day. You could even be forgiven if you forget Ethan Hawke is in Training Day if you haven't seen it in a while until you see it. He's not the main character. He's the villain. I totally understand what you mean. He takes that movie on, and I actually, kind of what we were talking about with his charisma, you are rooting for, against your own better judgment, I feel like you're rooting for Denzel. I'd say right up until the end of that movie. I did want him to get it by the end of that movie.
Yeah.
But I won't, even if we're not, we're quibbling about technicalities, I still have more than that. But I will say, like, he's the villain of the movie. So he has one of the best villain death scenes. And certainly if we play it out, he actually gets shot up after that scene. He drives away, and then he sort of gets like cut off when the cars stop and they fill him full of bullets like Sonny Corleone. But if we the whole moment
that
after
whole scene,
the whole moment after that thing, if we want to call that a death scene, it is one of the
I'm
great,
calling the actual death scene. That's still a pretty dope.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Cars pinning him and just lighting him up.
It's one of the best villain death scenes. But Ethan Hawke is the protagonist of the movie. He's the one who we're seeing the perspective of. We're going on the ride. Our perspective as the audience is sort of seen through Ethan Hawke, and he goes home at the end of the day and all that. But that's fine. I get what you mean when you say it's Denzel's movie. It is. The main character of the movie is not always the most interesting one, and that's the case here. I'll say, if we're just going back to like what the prompt makes me think of, best movie where the main character dies. The Departed, as you mentioned, it has two main characters. My point of view is the main characters are Damon and
but my movie
DiCaprio.
doesn't have two main characters.
Yeah, your movie has one, and he's Ethan Hawke. But
sure,
it's Matt Damon and DiCaprio, and the whole thing is the duality of. I mean, it's always like they're on parallel paths and they intersect, and when they finally meet, in the office after DiCaprio gets brought in. It's a very significant moment, and you see all these things with them. The reason that this movie, The Departed, was so big, and when people would talk about it, this was one of those things where it's like, what was that fucking death scene in that movie? It's like, you finally got him. He's got him like by the thing. He's taking him down the elevator. Damon's like dejected. He's like, just fucking kill me. And he's like, I am killing you. Elevator opens, pop, busted out. His brain is all over the back of the elevator. And then, just to make matters worse, Damon picks up the gun, bam, he kills Anthony Anderson.
Yeah.
And then, what's his name comes, James Badge Dale comes around the corner. He's like, I'm also in Costello's unit. He goes, I don't fucking care. Bam. That scene, and then like the elevator door just sort of like closing on the thing. I remember that scene was like people, like my dad, who I think appreciates the movie, he was like, I don't know what that scene was. So I guess the conversation around the movie, there's a lot of different elements of it, was about like, whoa, that fucking death scene. I don't know if it was that you would have been shocked going into a movie called The Departed that Leonardo DiCaprio or Damon, whoever you think is the main character, would depart. But it was the absolute shock of it that kind of just, I remember leaving me in the theater being like, what the fuck? Like, they just killed 3 characters in quick succession. Like you say, random, unexpected. I didn't know that was going to happen to me. I think that's a kind of a benefit of the movie because the movie feels done by that point. DiCaprio's out. He sees the thing on the thing. It's like, oh, this guy's going, oh, shit, and then you get the little bit of the movie. There's that great repeated line from Damon where he's like, I just want to make clear I'm recommending, Sergeant, for the Medal of Merit. Like, now it's like, this fucking scumbag's going to get away with it.
Yeah.
It's like the wrong guy died. DiCaprio's a good guy. And then, and if you want to say in a movie of corrupt characters that Damon makes more sense as the protagonist, okay, because then he goes to his room. There's that thing where he tries to pet the dog won't even sniff his hand, sort of like he's like, animals can always tell sort of thing.
Right,
like they don't even,
right.
And then he gets in the room, and then you get where all the other ones were so quick. You get that long drawn out scene. You just see Wahlberg with his tissue box shoes, and he holds a gun to him, and he goes, "Just wait, just give me a," and then bam. And so the manner of main character death, or in this case, deaths, to me was like, I don't want to say that makes the movie or breaks
Who's
the movie.
the main character, Quinn?
DiCaprio or Damon. Take your pick. They both die in ways that I think are very significant. The 2 memorable scenes in that movie is Damon getting it and DiCaprio in that trio of deaths. James is going to make the pick. I just put to you that in the topic of movies where the main character dies, this is a movie that really, those were moments in the movie. And it's absolutely a moment with Denzel too. I just think The Departed, it's kind of, that was more of the like wow factor of the movie.
I love that, like, it's been so chill, and then
now we got to get, I want to get that win.
And like, all right, James, now choose one.
The hardest job is to guest James. We say this every time, but we used to do this podcast without guests, and every podcast would be like an hour and 45 minutes of us just being like, but this is why mine's better. So we gotta have a guest on, and the guest has to choose.
Right.
The first season we would just till one of us gave up,
Yeah.
and then
so we've stalled long enough, James. Thank you.
Yeah, tell us your thoughts.
Yeah.
How you feel and your process, and then give us your.
Well, coming into this, I honestly did not have an answer. I really like both of these movies. I think they're really good. I have personal kind of emotional attachments to both of them, not in like a sentimental way, but just in like that I kind of remember that the time period of my life pretty well when they came out, and I remember when they first came out really liking them. I remember seeing them multiple times and always liking them. This rewatch, I really liked both of the movies. I do think there's a ton of similarities, and I do think like, I think the first thing you think about when you do think about both of these movies is in fact the antagonist or the villain, right? Like the performances, Nicholson's performance is pretty specifically Nicholson, and Denzel's performance is so, kind of like iconic. And I think they're both good movies. I think both of you guys made good choices. And I think in the end, I'm going to choose The Departed.
Oh, yes. Oh,
and here's what's funny. Like, actually, you kind of convinced me, Quinn, because I was actually leaning more towards Training Day. And just because of the iconic facet of it. But then when you started talking about your relationship to the actual main character dying and the audience's relationship to the main character dying, and if the prompt is like the whole purpose of this prompt is the main character's dying, I do think that there was a shock factor that The Departed had with main characters dying that Training Day didn't. And going into it, I didn't even consider the kind of like audience shock factor of the death. And then you bringing it up made me go like, oh, I did remember enjoying that aspect of it, like not knowing that was going to happen. And so yeah, both of you presented great films, great arguments. Leonard, I'm sorry. I'm going with The Departed.
Someone's got to be the winner.
Someone has to win.
Yeah.
Someone has to win.
And James, I thank you for sharing your perspective with us. I thank you for picking, I'm pretty sure, correctly. But I was I'll give you credit, Leonard.
I should have just chosen The Departed.
Well, yeah, clearly that. But I'll give you credit. I was like, I mean, this has happened more often, but like this one particularly, it was like, this is a coin flip. I have no idea which way. Leonard made a good argument. You cut me off at the knees. I did not necessarily know you were going to beat me to the Denzel's not the main character argument, which I had lined up. I'm like, all right.
I knew that was going to be your number one argument.
We anticipate each other's arguments again.
That's why when you said this shit about the poster, I kind of wanted you to go first because then I was going to pull out the poster, but then you said it earlier, so I was like, all right, I'll go first anyway.
That's so funny.
You look at the fucking poster.
Yeah.
It is Denzel Washington.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, if the prompt was just which one of these movies is better, I would have chosen Training Day. I think Training Day is a better movie overall, and I think it's more memorable. It has more pop culture references. I think but because Quinn convinced me because of the prompt, that connecting that kind of emotion of like the protagonist, the main character's dying. Like,
I lawyered it.
Yeah, you did, man.
I lawyered it.
You did. Good job.
I'm in your kitchen. Chainsawing your floor, and I'm taking bricks of money out. James, thank you so much for joining us for talking quite a long time about these movies. This was a blast.
I had a great time. It was fun talking movies with you guys.
Tell us. I know. Tell us where we can find you, please. What you're doing, where we can find you, where.
You can find me.
Anything you want to plug.
I do this show called I'm Too Effing High that I'm going to be with Dhruv Uday Singh, and we're going to be bringing it back pretty soon with some changes. So look, kind of check that out. And then Leonard and I are both involved together in starting a comedy cooperative theater here in Los Angeles. So
yeah, you guys have been putting on some shows and starting to hear some news. Exciting.
So check out the LA Comedy Co-op on Instagram for updates about what we're doing, shows we'll be having, and yeah, check that out. We're trying to do some cool shit.
Yeah, it's exciting times. It's gonna be it's fun, and it's gonna continue.
Worker owned.
Yes, sir.
I love it. Well, guys, thank you again. This has been another great episode. It's been a fantastic episode for me. I know, Leonard, you're probably feeling a little crestfallen right now.
Hey, man, I'm the two-time reigning champ. I'm feeling good. I'm okay.
King Kong ain't got shit on me, Leonard. Until next time, we will see you at the cinema. Have a good one.